Saturday morning to everybody, and welcome to On the Mark, along with Mark Papa. I'm Gary Byron. You can find out more about Mark, all about his company, Financial Resources Group. That's Financial Resources Group. They're out of Glastonbury. You can find out more on his website, www.frplan.com. That's F as in Frank, frplan.com. And the phone number, write this phone number down, okay? Set it aside, okay? I want you to hold on to it, but I also want you to call it. 860-657-8380. You can call it after the show. You can call it Monday morning. You can call it at your convenience. 860-657-8380. He also has his own YouTube channel. When you go onto YouTube, type in the search field at Mark, that's M-A-R-K, Papa, P-A-P-P-A, 5207. Again, it's at Mark Papa 5207. And when you go on to frplan.com, cataloged our previous shows. You can listen to them at your convenience. Mark, good morning. Great to see you.
Good morning, Gary. Happy Saturday. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? We're already halfway through the month already. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's
short month.
Yeah, not only is it a short month, it's like I can't believe we're already this far into the year. It seemed like I was the ball was just dropping.
On New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's good to drop the ball, but yeah.
You never want to drop the ball.
But it's quite interesting. Things just, life is short, so you're going to make the best of every day. So it's amazing how quickly things do move.
Well, dropping the ball is something that you never do. I know you take this very seriously. Tomorrow, big Daytona 500. You a big NASCAR fan? You a big race fan?
I like watching the Daytona 500. In fact, I just met a new younger couple in town who they're big race fans, and they said they don't spend a lot of money, but the one thing that they really love to do is go to these races. And I said, that's something I need to put on my bucket list and go to the Daytona 500 or go to one of these major NASCAR races.
There's one right up in Loudon. It's in August, I think.
Yeah, Loudon, New Hampshire. So I'm putting that on my list.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been to a couple of the Loudon races. I actually was at the Daytona International Speedway. I didn't go during the Daytona 500. I happened to be in Daytona, and I went to take the tour. But I'll be watching tomorrow. It's America's race. It's winter. Most people are spending their time indoors. All the more reason, I think, to get your ducks in a row. I would imagine that people sit down and chat with you more in fall, winter, and spring. Summer, it's so hard to nail people down. They're on vacations, they're in every direction, day trips, spending time with kids are a while from school, right? And spending time with family. So this is really the time as we're here in the middle of February.
Yeah, I would say it usually is the time people want to get focused on. And I know last time we met, I was just going to do a brief recap.
Identity theft, right?
Brief recap of the identity theft. And one of the major takeaways was to make sure you go on to one of the major Experian, TransUnion.
That's right.
Equifax,
I remember that now.
And make sure that you get your credit locked down. And we also talked a little bit about, again, proactivity. It's tax season, so you can go and get your identity theft PIN with the IRS. And just irs.gov, ID theft PIN. Just Google that, and they'll take you to make sure you're on the irs.gov, by the way. It'll let you know. But make sure you're on irs.gov, and you can get an identity theft PIN. And then the third thing was taking a copy of everything in your wallet or purse.
You know what? Ever since you said that has stuck with me. I wish I could tell you I went and did it immediately after you said, but it makes so much sense. You know what? I'm going to, when we get off the air this morning, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a photocopy while I'm here at the station of everything that's in my quasi wallet.
Yeah, and then you just lock that down with all your important papers and places that you like to keep safe. Because, again, that allows you to just, when there's smoke, there's fire. And the faster we can put out the smoke, the better. Right. So, and the same thing goes for, what an
ordeal to go to get your identity stolen. How long does it take to get your life back, to get your identity back?
Just to continue, it depends on how bad it is. I mean, a lot of times people are just like, well, my credit card company cleaned it up. Well, guess what? If someone stole that credit card, that information is probably being stolen or sold somewhere else eventually. So you really want to figure out how to sniff that out. But I mean, you also have to I mentioned I had a client that had to change their email. They had to change their phone. We had to change all their bank accounts that linked to all their direct deposits. now you have other things like your utilities, your phone company, right? Mobile phone, government benefits. What about having to deal with, we talked about earlier, how even the Social Security Administration, now sadly, if someone was incapacitated, right, they don't accept your power of attorney, remember that. But think about having to deal with, now you have to deal with Social Security to get your bank account changed for your direct deposit, right? So your Social Security check can go into it. You can shut it off. Now we have to go through trouble turning that back on. Your checking accounts. Or what about younger folks who have student loans? Right now you have to call the Student Loan Association. And, so there can be a lot of different things. And again, the more we can do with this guide, and again, this is experts that, the top experts in the country on identity theft, the more we can do to help people with this, I think the better. And the more proactive we can be and the more proactive they can be, the better. So
is there like a personal recovery plan? Does that exist as far as that can kind of walk people through each step?
Yeah, I know I had a service that would do that. One other mention, we're going to be talking a little bit about home insurance in a bit.
Okay.
Some people, they may want to go and check their homeowner's policy to see what if they have any identity theft coverage in their homeowner's policy.
I never heard that would have jurisdiction over such a...
Yeah, and I think what that'll do is it'll help them at least have a recovery plan. Some of the other credit monitoring services do have an identity theft recovery plan. I fortunately have not had to use it, so I can't really speak to that. But let me make a note on that, Gary, because I definitely want to maybe give them a call and say, what exactly are you going to do for me if I'm paying you XYZ a month? What are you going to do and they'll say, how much money are I actually going to get to help me recover my identity? Because I doubt they're going to have someone doing the work for you. And then, we found out, like, when you call the phone company, your name is not on the bill. I mean, unless I don't know. So I would really want to know that, Gary. That's a good point. And I can also bring that up in another later conversation. Yeah, because I don't know it all, but that's a great point you bring up. So it's good to have these conversations because it only makes it better for everyone.
Oh, good.
Stress test.
All right.
Okay. So speaking of home insurance, one of the things we like to talk about is, when someone is saving for retirement, how long does that take to actually build up that nest egg?
Well, you should start as soon as possible.
Yeah, you want to start as soon as possible, and the longer you can get that money to compound. But, is it something where, you can start saving for retirement in 5 years or does it take 30, 40 years to build up your money?
There isn't any one answer to that.
There isn't. So that's a good point. So how about a forest? How long does it take a forest to grow?
I've never planted one, but okay. I would imagine that just accumulates over hundreds of years.
Yeah, it takes a long time, right? Yeah. It's the timber companies. And how about putting up a building even? How long does it take to put up a building with a blueprint?
A lot less time than creating a forest.
A long less time, but it's still
a long time.
Still takes a while.
Sure.
How quickly could, let's say, we just saw this sadly in California, quickly lightning strikes can wipe out thousands of acres of forest?
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, right? And the same with a building. How quickly could a tornado just come and wipe it out? So one of the things we like to talk about is having some type of umbrella liability insurance, okay? Making sure that you're protected against things like lawsuits. So let's say, for example, I'm having a party in my backyard and my buddy trips over the hose, spills a beer on himself.
Hey, you got coverage for that.
Yeah, I got coverage. And they said, you better have good what?
Good liability.
Good liability insurance, right? So if it's a buddy of mine saying that kind of thing, they're not going to sue me, but what happens?
Well, I don't know. If they go ass over tea kettle, they're...
Well, if they get really hurt, that's different.
That's a completely different story.
But, I should have cut him off a little earlier. But, if it was what happens was one of their weird friends that they brought that you probably didn't really,
So you don't even know all that well.
Don't even know all that well. What do you think might happen? So,
they're going to sue you.
Yeah. So the whole idea is we want to protect ourselves against lawsuits. And I'm sure some of your insurance folks who come on here will agree. And, I'd love to hear some of their insights too in the depths of this. But, so, yeah, exactly. So if the forest can just disappear automatically, what can happen to your nest egg that you've worked so hard for all those years and you get nailed in a lawsuit? Right. So, let's think about this for a minute.
Lose everything.
You don't want to lose everything. Right. So for something as low as, I think it's somewhere about $250, $300, whatever, even $350, you can get what is called an umbrella insurance. And the umbrella is, and it covers you against these type of frivolous lawsuits. It's tied to your auto insurance. And then ultimately what happens is if you do get sued, think about this for a minute. So you paid $350 a year for like $1 million, maybe misquoting. We can actually talk to your State Farm guy, right? Who's
Michael Van Onek.
Yeah, I would definitely talk to Michael and say, Michael, what is this umbrella insurance all about, and what does it normally cost? But interesting enough, think about if they're on the hook, the insurance company's on the hook for $1 million, and they're defending you. Okay, how hard are they going to fight to make sure that they win that lawsuit and don't have to pay that $1 million?
Of course, they're going to fight hard.
They're going to fight hard.
Yeah.
And they're going to hire, the local family attorney on the corner and
no.
the hometown, or they're going to go to the big
They're going. That's right.
They're going after now. How good are the lawyers?
They're calling Dershowitz.
Yeah, exactly. They're calling the best guys. So what we say is having this umbrella liability is almost like having prepaid legal. Why would I say that? Because if you're paying $250 or $350 a year, what would it cost you?
Oh, way more than that.
Out of pocket to defend yourself against one of these frivolous lawsuits.
Be $250 an hour.
Right. And then, I don't know if you get a chance to turn on the TV around 3 o'clock, but what kind of shows typically advertising comes on?
Attorneys.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, we all know who they are.
3 o'clock. That's morning, noon, and night. It either seem to be pharmaceuticals or attorneys.
No, pharmaceuticals and attorneys, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Leading into the soap operas. So, obviously we want to make sure again. And, I know I like to say this, but having the prepaid legal and having that taken care of is just another one of those things. And what kind of advisor would I be if I wasn't helping my clients protect themselves against this type of liability?
Yeah, no, you'd be terrible, but we already know that you're not. So,
oh, well, thank you.
That's why you're bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a reminder. I can't tell you. I think a lot of people. I think it's about 50-50. Half the people have it, half of them don't. But I mean, I even I have it for myself too. It's just peace of mind.
See, the best $350 you spent.
Yeah, I don't even know what it costs anybody. It's just. I know it's not going to cost me $35,000 to protect myself, so it's a good thing to have. Okay, so you see why we look at that. So speaking of insurance, now the next thing we want to talk about is property casualty insurance. So this is like your home insurance. Okay, so that's kind of to protect you against lawsuits. Now, this is brutally obvious to everybody, but are we seeing, more catastrophes in the news? Are we seeing more, the wildfires? We had Lahana. We've had, hurricanes. We saw floods in North Carolina. So are we seeing more and more of that stuff or less and less, do you think?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say more and more.
More and more, right? It's been a lot.
But it's not. You talk about the fires out in California, right? Where this wasn't just they always get it seems like they always get every summer they have a wildfire. This was taking out communities. This wasn't just
That's horrible.
People lost their homes. I mean, and the block up the street is gone. The next community is gone. You got tornadoes in the Midwest. You got hurricanes down south. Mm-hmm. Makes you feel kind of lucky to be here in Connecticut. We got to put up with a couple of snowstorms.
Yeah, a couple of snowstorms and higher taxes. But as much as we fight about that, I'm sort of feeling fairly fortunate to say, I think I'll stick around for a while and I'll just bite the bullet, right? I haven't
until you retire.
It's been a while since we've had our tornado, and I remember Hurricane Gloria growing up as a kid, where those trees were bending like hard.
But how often is that in Connecticut?
Not so much. Hopefully, not so much. But the bottom line here is, as a result of that, now the home insurance companies, we are the insurance capital of the world, but these companies, they got this concept from the cereal companies. When you go to the grocery store, I want you to think about this. Remember what a box of Cheerios used to look like and what a box of Cheerios looks like now.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a bigger box of Cheerios or a smaller box of Cheerios?
Well, it's interesting because I've had this discussion with people recently. The box may be the same size, but the bag inside the box that actually contained the Cheerios, you're getting less Cheerios for more money. It's a double negative whammy against people.
Right, exactly. And it's unbelievable. So that it's like that type of food inflation or whatever you want to call it. But the insurance companies are smart, and they figured out that, hey, do you think they're adding more and more benefits to your insurance policy or less and less as a result of these catastrophes?
Of course, it's fewer.
Yeah, fewer, right? So what we want to make sure is, your home insurance. So we have what's called a home insurance review checklist. Okay, and I'll get into that in just a little bit, but so a lot of times when you get a summary of your policy, now it comes in the email, or it comes they might, if you're still one of those people who get paper, they'll mail it to you. Let's say it's a 30, 40 page summary of your benefits. How often and eager are you to sit back and read that double paged?
Who does read it?
I don't know anyone who does unless they're in the insurance agent. I mean,
they're hoping you don't read it.
They're hoping we don't read it. I briefly reviewed mine, and I looked at it. It said something about uninsured motorists is 0. And I'm like, I better call my insurance company and make sure I'm covered if I get hit. So I still need to do that. But, I'm a busy guy. We're all busy. So unfortunately, no one checks it. And they bury those changes in the front page, or where do you think they put it inside that thick packet?
It's in the back, in the small print.
In the back, in the small font print, or maybe in the middle somewhere. So you can go through your policy, and it may say something like, well, if you're not comfortable with this change, call your agent, and they'll be happy to take care of it, right? Mm. So those are the kind of things we want to protect people against. So one of the main things also is, most people have a real agent like you, and then some people might have an agent that works for an insurance company on salary. Either way, you can get this form to them on an email and have them scrub through this form for you to make sure your policy doesn't have that missing coverage. Yeah, because it happens a lot. And simple things. There's kind of a fancy term. It's more of an insurance, which is called replacement value, or cash value, or actual cash value.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. I got to do a quick ID, but when we come back, I want you to kind of dissect each, because I had an incident one time years ago, and I didn't get replacement value. I got the value of it, which depreciated over time. Yep. So I really couldn't replace what I had due to the depreciation. Folks, you are listening to On the Mark along with Mark Papa. I'm Gary Byron. You can check out his website. It's www.frplan.com. And write this phone number down, and at the end of the show, give him a buzz, or at the very least, wait until Monday if you'd like. 860-657-8380. Again, 860-657-8380. Mark, going back to cash value versus a replacement cost, I will only do replacement cost. I can't do the actual value of something that's depreciated.
Yeah, and I mean, anything that you can prevent that from happening, is because it's a really simple deal. I mean, if you had a roof that was, what's it cost to replace a roof nowadays?
$20,000?
$20,000. And they said, well, your roof is 10 years old, so we're going to take $1,000 off every year, right? You've owned your roof. And now that means that they're going to take your $20,000, subtract 10, and they're going to say, hey, we're happy to pay you a check for $10,000. Where's the other $10,000 have to come from?
Your pocket.
Your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you prepared for just pulling $10,000 out of your bank account, or $10,000 out of your stock account to go pay the roofing company to go, fix this, because the insurance company wouldn't pay for it. That's not a lot of fun. So,
but of course, when you go to the insurance company, you have to tell them when you renew your policy that you want replacement value, and that's going to cost more. See, most people walk into their insurance agent, I would imagine, and say, "Oh, that's too much. How can we lower my insurance?" Because insurance has gone up. I know people that have never made a claim, or I shouldn't say never. They haven't made a claim in years, and their insurance went up. Well, the insurance went up for the reasons why we were just talking a moment ago: catastrophe on a national level. That money's got to. Insurance companies got to get that money somehow.
They have to socialize the cost, and then the cost of the reinsurance actually goes up.
Right.
Because they've lost, several $billions, hundreds of billions. They've got to make it up somewhere. Okay, and that's just how it is. They socialize the cost. But you're exactly right. When it comes to the replacement cost versus the actual cash value, it is a super important thing to scrub through the policy to find out whatever does qualify for replacement cost should be replacement cost, not actual cash value. And then the other thing, I'm not so sure in Connecticut about this, but surge protection, surge coverage. So let's think about this. If everyone in the neighborhood loses a roof, how quickly are you going to want to have yours put back on? And now every roofer there's a price to putting roofs on going to go up if everyone needs a roof.
Well, it's all supply and demand.
Yeah, it's a supply and demand. It's going to drive the costs up. So, I'm not sure about that. That's something to maybe ask your agent. If you're listening, I'm not a licensed.
So it happened out in California just a month ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to double check on those things. Other things like water damage as well. The easy example is if the water table rises and you have a crack in your foundation, that can be considered a flood versus, a leak. So water damage, in some cases, I've seen cases where, you have if you haven't caught the leak in a certain period of time, and again, this is more for a licensed property casualty specialist, but this is why you would bring this form to your agent. So you bring this property casualty form over to your agent so that this way they can scrub through this stuff, the professionals, to make sure. And I ask folks, though, how often do you meet with your agent? And they'll say, gee, it's been a couple of years. And I'd say, I would urge everybody to get a copy of this property casualty checklist and get it to their agent immediately, which is why they need to come see me, for the simple fact that a lot can change in 2 years, and a lot has changed in the last 2 years. Prices are up. Cost of insurance is up. People are looking to save money, like you said, Gary. And, a lot of times they'll get a phone call and, this is a such and such insurance company. You know what? We can actually save you a few bucks, and you go switch your policy. You don't know exactly what you just switched to. You may not be getting the same coverage. You may be getting less coverage. And they could be doing things like this. So you have to be super
bait
careful.
And switch?
Well, I don't know exactly if it's that, but at the end of the day, it could be. But I would say a lot of times it could be lowering your cost of insurance, but also you're lowering certain benefits that you really should have. So that's why, it's important to run it through an actual financial professional who's licensed property casualty agent, but also bring this form to them.
What's considered a flood versus what's considered water damage?
Well, a flood is a flood. And I'm not a perfect expert at this, but I do know that, again, if the water table does rise, that's could be considered a flood.
Oh, okay.
So those are little things that again, that's why I'm not a licensed professional on this, but I am savvy enough to know we have this property casualty checklist that we want to get filled out to help scrub your policy. And now, in this property casualty checklist, by the way, we don't have you do it. We don't have our clients say, hey, check through your policy. We bring it to their agent. Okay. Now that agent, every time you make a premium, they're not working for free. So guess what? They're getting what?
Commission.
They're getting commission. They're getting paid. So, should they be the ones to actually take a look at this and scrub through with you and review because if not, obviously they need to earn their paycheck, right?
Sure.
So it makes it a lot easier. And plus, they do this stuff every day, and there's a lot of really good property casualty agents out there who can help you out and make sure that you do it. I know that they like to send lots of material out to their customers to do those reviews. So don't ignore those reviews, too. I'm not saying that this is all the insurance company's faults or the agent's faults, but if your agent's reaching out to you to say, hey, just want to review your policy this year, call them back and make that appointment. Don't ignore that, because it could cost you a ton of money down the road.
Good advice.
And unnecessary things that would have normally been covered had you just had that product review. Okay?
Yeah.
So, so those are the reasons why I think, again, what kind of advice you want to be. I like to say this a lot, but if I'm making sure, if all I cared about was my client's investments and I wasn't making sure that they were on with their agent and covering these things.
These are areas of concern. They are areas of concern.
And the major thing, too, by the way, is when anyone comes on board with us, we like to send a letter out to their accountant, right? We'll talk about taxes down the road. Send a letter out to their accountant to see if there's anything we can do to help them make their job easier. We send one out to their lawyers, same thing. What can we do to make your job easier? How can we help you help them, or help the client help themselves, or help the client, whatever. And the same goes even for the property casualty agent. I want to get to know them as well and let them know we have this great resource for you. It's this property casualty checklist that once a year we'll send you the reminder of let's go over these policies. And by the way, take copies of this if you need to and hand them out to your clients, or friends or whomever, so they come back to you and have their policies reviewed. So we're not about keeping things close to the vest. I like to share with people.
It's good. Good advice.
Yeah. Because, again, if we're making, making things better for everybody, good karma comes back. But, it's important that people know this. And, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was just 10 years ago.
No, but to your point, these are things that, I wouldn't even, you're so right. We should be more cognizant of it. But without these reminders that you're talking about, life gets in the way. We're human,
Right.
and we don't, and they're so important as you're articulating this. But why does it slip our mind? It shouldn't.
Yeah, and then, we assume that everything is, that we've hired good people. We have great lawyers, great accountants, great insurance folks, great advisors.
This is why you're around, brother. This is why we need you.
And unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times people don't even know what questions to ask.
No,
so
true.
That's why it's so important. But Gary, I know you said, I think we have a few minutes left.
I got 30 seconds left.
30 seconds. So we're going to next meeting, we'll recap some of these things. The podcast will be available on my website, on the Mark podcast, www.frplan.com. And also, the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be probably a little bit longer. We're going to be talking about why it's so important to title your accounts correctly, and also beneficiaries. How, unfortunately, grandparents may not know this, can unintentionally disinherit their grandkids. And they didn't even know it.
Don't say that.
Yeah, so we're going to show people how not to do that in the next segment. Making sure your accounts are titled to avoid probate correctly, and then making sure you don't unintentionally disinherit your grandkids.
frplan.com, right? frplan.com. That's how to reach you. That's the website. It's so funny because you get so much information right here on this show. And what we like to do is spark interest. Get you asking questions that, you sit there and say, oh, man, I wish I had thought of that. We've thought of that, or Mark has thought of that for you. That's why it is absolutely essential that you contact him. Why don't you tell everybody your phone number?
Oh, my phone number is 860-657-8380. And you can call me anytime, and I'm very good at returning phone calls.
There you go.
One other thing I want to bring up is anybody who comes in, they get the 7 essential documents at no cost or obligation. We can cover these, help you fill them out. About a 30-minute meeting. And last thing is, I'm offering a $100 gift card for anyone that wants to do the full version. And I'll detail that in the next segment.
All right.
But there'll be terms and conditions, but
we got to wrap this up.
We'll show you how to get that done.
For Mark Papa, I'm Gary Byron. Thank you so much for listening to On the Mark. Until next Saturday morning, have a good one, everybody. So long.